The timeless allure of the unknown. Since the dawn of human civilization, our species has been irresistibly drawn to the unknown. Across cultures, religions, and historical eras, tales of strange creatures, otherworldly beings, inexplicable phenomena, and ancient legends have captivated imaginations and sparked endless debates. This deep fascination is not merely a result of superstition or lack of scientific understanding. It is also a reflection of something profound within us, a yearning to explore what lies beyond the veil of our current comprehension. What lurks in the deepest ocean trenches? What secrets might Mars or distant galaxies hold? Are we alone in the universe, or is something watching us from the shadows? The allure of mystery is timeless because it speaks to both fear and wonder. We fear what we do not understand, and yet we are compelled to uncover it. Ghost stories told by firelight, mysterious artifacts buried beneath ancient sands, and bizarre sightings in remote forests or high above city skies have all contributed to the cultural fabric of the human experience. With each new century, these mysteries evolve, fueled by modern technology and the vast expansion of our observational reach. High-resolution satellite images, deep-sea drones, and rovers traversing Martian terrain now allow us to spot anomalies and unexplained phenomena that would have once gone unnoticed. The more we uncover, the more questions we raise. Importantly, these mysteries are not limited to fictional campfire tales. Many of the most compelling modern enigmas are grounded in documented sightings, photographs, video footage, and even physical evidence, albeit ambiguous in nature. Governments have released UFO files. Pilots have reported unidentified aerial phenomena with radar confirmation, and deep-sea researchers have encountered structures and creatures previously unknown. The boundary between myth and reality is becoming more blurred as the scientific and supernatural converge in unexpected ways. In this article, we will take a comprehensive look at some of the most baffling mysteries humanity has encountered, from the dusty plains of Mars to the icy wilderness of Antarctica, from haunted graveyards in Scotland to alleged sightings of mythical beasts like the Michigan Dogman and Bigfoot. Some of these accounts come with compelling eyewitness testimony, others with puzzling photographic evidence or historical records that defy easy explanation. Whether you are a skeptic who believes in rational inquiry or a believer open to the existence of the extraordinary, the stories that follow are bound to intrigue you. This journey is not just about answering questions. It's about questioning the answers we've been given. It's about looking again at the evidence and asking, what if we're wrong? What if the world is stranger and more magical than we ever imagined? So prepare to suspend disbelief, open your mind, and follow along as we explore the biggest unsolved mysteries that continue to baffle scientists, thrill seekers, and truth seekers alike. UFOs spotted over Mars. Mars, the enigmatic red planet, has long held a place in the collective curiosity of humankind. As early as the late 19th century, astronomers speculated about canals on its surface, imagining them as evidence of intelligent life. In recent decades, with the advent of high-resolution cameras on orbiters and rovers, new forms of speculation have taken root, particularly around sightings of unidentified flying objects, UFOs in Mars skies. One especially compelling example emerged when a viewer using the Mars Rover Mobile application discovered a curious object suspended above the Martian terrain. The image submitted by a user, intrigued by the anomaly, depicts what appears to be a hovering craft, clearly separated from the ground below. There's visible space beneath the object which has no obvious landing gear or contact with the surface. It lacks wings, rotor blades, or any other conventional propulsion features we associate with known aerial technology. While many will quickly leap to the conclusion that this is evidence of alien visitation, it's important to apply critical thinking to such images. Could this be a trick of light, a camera artifact, or dust on the lens? Or are we seeing something that truly challenges the boundaries of our current understanding? It's worth noting that the term UFO simply means unidentified flying object. It doesn't automatically imply extraterrestrial origin. However, what makes this case fascinating is the context in which it appears. Mars, despite being desolate and harsh, has frequently been the center of alien speculation. Numerous images captured by NASA have shown peculiar rock formations, dome-like structures, and now allegedly crafts suspended in mid-air. Each sighting fuels online debates with skeptics, offering optical explanations while believers argue for secrecy and suppression of knowledge. Some researchers propose that the object might be a piece of space debris from prior missions caught in an unusual position by wind currents in the thin Martian atmosphere. Others point to its symmetrical structure and its shadow or lack thereof as indicative of an artificially constructed object. Still others suggest pareidolia, the psychological phenomenon where the human brain perceives familiar shapes where none exist, may be at play. Yet even with these potential explanations, the hovering object remains unsolved. It's just one in a growing number of anomalies spotted on Mars. Each new image fuels the sense that we are only scratching the surface of what Mars may hold. Until manned missions to the planet provide first-hand exploration, speculation will continue to swirl around such anomalies. In the end, the question is not just about what this object is, but what it represents. Is it a trick of the eye, a technical glitch, or evidence of something beyond? The answer remains elusive, and perhaps that's exactly why it continues to fascinate us. As with all great mysteries, the lack of resolution keeps the curiosity burning. And for Mars, the sky is quite literally not the limit when it comes to unanswered questions. Mars' magnetic field, inhabitability, challenges. While the idea of colonizing Mars has captured the imagination of visionaries, scientists, and science fiction writers alike, the Red Planet presents an array of formidable challenges, none more fundamental than its lack of a global magnetic field. Unlike Earth, which is shielded by a magnetic field that deflects harmful solar radiation and cosmic particles, Mars is exposed to the full brunt of space radiation. This difference may seem abstract, but it has profound consequences for the potential habitability of the planet. On Earth, the magnetic field is generated by the movement of molten iron within its core. This dynamic process creates a protective shield or magnetosphere that not only makes the use of a compass possible, but also preserves our atmosphere and makes long-term life sustainable. Mars, by contrast, lost its magnetic field billions of years ago, possibly due to the cooling of its core or a tectonic disruption. As a result, Mars lacks this crucial shield, allowing solar winds to strip away its atmosphere over time. This exposure contributes significantly to the planet's barren and hostile environment. Without a magnetic field, Mars's surface is bombarded by high-energy radiation from space, including ultraviolet rays and cosmic particles. This not only makes it a dangerous place for human explorers without heavy shielding, but it also decreases the likelihood of microbial life surviving on or near the surface. In fact, any future Mars habitat would need to be buried underground or encased in thick protective domes to ensure radiation safety. Another critical issue is Mars's atmospheric pressure. Its atmosphere is roughly 100 times thinner than Earth's, composed mainly of carbon dioxide and incapable of supporting human life without artificial life support. Water, another essential ingredient for life, is believed to exist on Mars, but mostly in the form of ice. Liquid water, if present, is likely to be deeply buried or extremely briny, making it hard to access and potentially toxic. Although satellite data and rover missions have indicated past riverbeds and even potential seasonal brine flows, stable liquid water on the surface today is virtually non-existent due to low atmospheric pressure and freezing temperatures. And then there is the cold. Mars is a frigid world with average surface temperatures hovering around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 62 degrees Celsius. Even during the planet's warmest season, equatorial regions rarely rise above the freezing point of water. This means that any form of life as we understand it would need to endure extreme and sustained cold, as well as radiation levels far beyond what is experienced on Earth. Despite these challenges, Mars still holds the best chance for life elsewhere in the solar system due to its relative similarity to Earth. It experiences seasons, has polar ice caps, and shows signs of geological activity. But the absence of a magnetic field and thick atmosphere means the planet is far from a second Earth. Any plan to terraform or colonize Mars must reckon with these deep environmental disadvantages, ones that are written into the very fabric of the planet's geology and history. Ultimately, Mars's magnetic field or lack thereof serves as a reminder that even planets that appear Earth-like can be radically different beneath the surface. Understanding these distinctions is essential not only for future exploration, but also for appreciating just how unique and fragile our own planet truly is. The tube structures and Martian anomalies. Among the most hotly debated images ever captured from the surface of Mars are those depicting what appear to be long, translucent, tube-like structures stretching across the dusty Martian terrain. These formations were first noticed in photographs released by the Mars Global Surveyor, and ever since they've fueled wild speculation, fierce debate, and cautious scientific interest. To some, these structures look eerily artificial, like pipelines or transportation systems left behind by an intelligent civilization. To others, they are simply odd yet explainable geological formations shaped by erosion or wind patterns. So what exactly are we seeing? The tube structures, sometimes referred to as glass worms or Martian tubes, are semi-transparent in appearance and appear to be raised off the ground, supported by arch-like segments along their lengths. These arches are spaced at regular intervals, giving the whole formation a rhythmic, engineered look. The uniformity of these structures is what makes them particularly fascinating. Unlike most natural formations, which tend to be irregular and haphazard, these tubes seem to follow a consistent design pattern, sparking theories that they may be remnants of alien infrastructure. One of the most vocal proponents of this theory is Joseph P. Skipper, a researcher known for cataloging so-called Martian anomalies. He and others argue that these tubes are not only uniform and interconnected, but they also display qualities inconsistent with naturally occurring geology. For instance, some of the tubes appear to join at 90-degree angles or terminate in rounded ends features that don't typically form from natural erosion processes. Moreover, some researchers claim that the tubes reflect sunlight in a way that suggests a glass-like composition, adding to the intrigue. Skeptics, on the other hand, offer more grounded explanations. They suggest that these formations are simply collapsed lava tubes, hollow tunnels created by flowing lava beneath the surface of Mars's ancient volcanic regions. Lava tubes are a well-documented geological feature on Earth, particularly in places like Hawaii and Iceland, and they can form long cylindrical shapes with arching supports if the surface crust hardens while lava continues to flow beneath. Over time, as the lava drains, the roof may collapse in segments, creating the illusion of structured arches. Alternatively, they could be sand dunes shaped by the planet's powerful dry winds or optical illusions created by shadows and low-resolution imaging. Despite these natural explanations, the question remains open. There has been no conclusive analysis, and NASA has never publicly confirmed what the tubes actually are. The agency has mostly remained silent on the matter, perhaps because the structures have not been deemed scientifically significant, or perhaps because they fuel the kind of speculation NASA prefers to avoid. Still, even if the tubes are natural, their strange appearance forces us to rethink what we consider natural in alien environments. Mars is a world shaped by forces and processes we don't yet fully understand, and sometimes what looks artificial may simply be unfamiliar. Until we send human explorers to Mars with the ability to examine these structures up close, the mystery will remain. Whether they are the work of nature or remnants of something more intelligent, these Martian tubes challenge our assumptions and invite us to imagine a reality far stranger than we know. Historical sightings and encounters. 1887, present. In the dense woodlands of Michigan, a chilling legend has persisted for well over a century, the tale of the Michigan Dogman, a creature described as a terrifying hybrid between a man and a dog. While tales of werewolf-like beings exist across cultures, the Dogman is uniquely tied to Michigan's folklore, particularly in the northwestern region of the Lower Peninsula. The first recorded sighting dates back to 1887 in Wexford County, when two lumberjacks claimed to have encountered a beast with a man's body and a canine's head. The creature walked upright on two legs, had piercing eyes, and exuded an air of malevolence that left the witnesses shaken. That early account might have faded into obscurity had it not been echoed in subsequent decades. In 1938, another chilling encounter was reported in Paris, Michigan, when a man named Robert Fortney was attacked by a pack of wild dogs. While fighting them off, he noticed that one of the animals stood on two legs and observed him with an eerie, human-like intelligence. More reports trickled in during the 1950s and 60s, often from rural areas with thick forests, marshlands, or open fields. In 1961, a night watchman in Big Rapids described seeing what he initially mistook for a person, only to realize its dog-like features under the glow of his flashlight. The creature fled when he raised his gun, though he did manage to snap a blurry photo before it disappeared into the darkness. That photo, never officially analyzed, remains an object of curiosity and suspicion among cryptid enthusiasts. The legend surged in popularity in 1987 when a local disc jockey at WTCM-FM in Traverse City created a novelty song titled The Legend as part of an April Fool's Day prank. Unexpectedly, the song resonated deeply with listeners who flooded the station with their own stories and alleged encounters. What began as a joke transformed into a phenomenon. People across the state began sharing tales of encounters with a creature matching the Dogman's description, large bipedal covered in dark fur, with a head like a German shepherd and an unsettling gait that resembled both a human and a beast. In more recent years, sightings have continued into the 2000s and beyond. One woman described hearing the shriek of an infant at night, only to look out her French doors and see a towering black figure with the head of a wolf splashing through swamp water behind her home. Another driver reported seeing a beast sprint across a rural highway at impossible speed, its front limbs disproportionately larger than the back, suggesting a mutated or supernatural physiology. Others have heard scratching at windows growling in the woods, or seen glowing eyes peering at them through the night. What makes the Michigan Dogman legend so persistent is not just the quantity of sightings, but the consistency of the descriptions. Whether in 1887 or 2021, the creature is always described the same way, 7 feet tall, bipedal with animalistic strength and intelligence. For believers, this consistency supports the theory that there's something real behind the myth. For skeptics, it's simply the power of suggestion folklore and fear perpetuated across generations. But one thing is clear, whatever lurks in the Michigan woods has captured imaginations, and perhaps something more for over 130 years. Physical features and behavior of the Dogman. What sets the Michigan Dogman apart from other cryptids isn't just the enduring mystery surrounding its existence, but the frighteningly specific descriptions that span more than a century. Witnesses have reported remarkably consistent details about its physical characteristics and behavior, lending an eerie cohesion to the legend. Descriptions typically portray the Dogman as a towering creature standing between 7 and 8 feet tall, covered in coarse black or dark brown fur. Its eyes are often said to glow, sometimes amber, sometimes icy blue, and its face is almost always likened to that of a large canine, such as a German shepherd or wolf. However, unlike typical animals, this beast walks upright strides like a human and seems acutely aware of its surroundings. Eyewitnesses frequently describe the Dogman's muscular frame and its long clawed hands, features that push it beyond the boundary of mere misidentified wildlife. Some claim its legs are jointed backward like those of a dog, while others say they more closely resemble a man's, though covered in fur. The upper body tends to be disproportionately large, often described as broad-chested or buff, which adds to its terrifying humanoid presence. These unsettling hybrid traits have led some to speculate whether the Dogman could be a genetic mutation, a supernatural entity, or even the result of ancient folklore manifesting through mass hysteria. Behaviorally, the Dogman is elusive and largely non-aggressive, though intimidating. Most encounters involve the creature observing from a distance, sometimes growling or shrieking to signal its presence, and then vanishing into the night. One of the most haunting features of the Dogman is the high-pitched human-like scream it is often said to emit, described by some as resembling a crying infant or a woman's shrill wail. This vocalization is not only unnatural for a canine species, but deeply unsettling, triggering primal fear in those who hear it. The creature's movement patterns also add to its mystique. Witnesses say it is capable of moving with lightning speed on both 2 and 4 legs, suggesting incredible agility and strength. In some cases, the Dogman has been seen leaping over fences or disappearing into wooded areas in a matter of seconds, as though aware it is being watched and determined not to be caught. A few stories even suggest some level of intelligence or territorial behavior. In several cases, the creature appeared to be guarding a certain area, an old barn, a swamp, or a stretch of deserted road, before chasing intruders away with growls, stares, or rapid movement. Intriguingly, despite its terrifying appearance and the fear it evokes, there have been no verified reports of the Dogman attacking or killing a human. This aspect has led some Native American traditions to believe the creature follows a spiritual code. Among the Cheyenne and other indigenous peoples, there are tales of warriors who bonded with animal spirits, especially wolves, and took on their forms to protect sacred lands. Some legends even suggest the Dogman cannot harm someone unless it is invited or provoked, reinforcing the belief that it may be a guardian or spirit being rather than a bloodthirsty monster. The Michigan Dogman straddles the line between folklore and cryptid, between beast and spirit. Its physical characteristics suggest something primal and terrifying, yet its behavior hints at caution, sentience, and perhaps even purpose. Whether real, mythical, or psychological, the Dogman's presence in countless eyewitness accounts points to something deeply rooted in our collective psyche, something that howls in the dark and watches from the tree line. Indigenous origins and the dog soldier legend. Long before European settlers laid eyes on the dense forests and wild swamplands of what is now Michigan, Native American tribes had already formed deep spiritual connections to the land. Their oral traditions were rich with stories of shapeshifters, guardian spirits, and beings that walked between the worlds of man and beast. Among the most compelling of these traditions is the tale of the Dog Soldiers, a group of fierce warriors from the Cheyenne Nation, and their possible connection to what is now called the Michigan Dogman. While modern sightings have reignited public curiosity, these accounts may actually have ancient spiritual roots. The Dog Soldiers, or Hotametanye'o, in the Cheyenne language, were an elite society of warriors known for their bravery, resilience, and mystical association with the wolf. These warriors didn't merely fight with ferocity. They believed in a sacred connection to their spirit animal, the dog or wolf, which they studied and emulated in behavior, endurance, and survival. Over time, many of these warriors were said to have developed characteristics that blurred the lines between man and animal. Legends passed down through generations told of dog soldiers who could run for days without tiring, communicate with wolves, or even take on beast-like forms during battle or spiritual rituals. According to some native traditions, particularly in the Great Lakes and Plains regions, certain individuals were chosen by animal spirits to act as protectors of the land. These individuals underwent extensive training, fasting, and rituals to become one with their spirit guide. Some legends even describe literal transformations, men who could shift into dog-like beings when provoked or when their sacred lands were in danger. These beings, according to lore, could only be seen by those with spirit vision or pure intent. While many stories are symbolic in nature, they offer a striking parallel to modern reports of the Dogman, tall dog-headed humanoids appearing from the forest, observing, and then vanishing without a trace. As colonization spread and native populations were displaced or eradicated, many spiritual traditions were driven underground. Yet stories of the Dogman persisted in whispered warnings often passed down by tribal elders. Some believed that not all of the dog soldiers were killed in the violent conflicts with the U.S. Army. Rather, a few had transcended the human form, entirely becoming permanent shapeshifters or guardians of the land. According to this line of belief, these beings still roam remote woods and swamps, protecting sacred spaces from desecration. This spiritual interpretation casts the Dogman not as a monster, but as a misunderstood protector, or perhaps a reminder of our severed relationship with nature. Interestingly, some modern witnesses describe feeling an overwhelming sense of awe or fear during encounters, not just because of the creature's appearance, but due to an inexplicable presence, as if the being radiated energy that was not merely animalistic, but conscious. These subtle experiences align closely with indigenous understandings of spirit, beings, entities that command reverence, not just fear. While modern science might reject such explanations, it's important to view these legends through the cultural lenses in which they were born. The Dogman legend may not be a new phenomenon, but rather a resurfacing of an ancient spiritual archetype, a guardian of nature misunderstood and feared in the modern world. In honoring these indigenous narratives, we don't just explore the mystery, we respect the wisdom of those who first walked these lands and knew that the forest often holds more than just trees. The First Sightings and the Birth of a Legend, 1966. In the quiet Appalachian town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, an ominous chapter in American folklore began on the night of November 12, 1966. As 5 men worked in a cemetery preparing a grave for burial, they claimed to witness something extraordinary, something terrifying. Rising from the treetops was a massive winged creature, unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't a bird, they insisted. It was something humanoid with glowing red eyes and a wingspan that defied belief. The men fled the cemetery in fear, and so began the legend of the Mothman. Just 3 days later, on November 15th, 2 young couples driving near the now infamous TNT area had their own encounter. This region, a remnant of a World War II munition site, was known for its decaying buildings, underground tunnels, and general atmosphere of eerie desolation. As they drove past one of the storage domes, their headlights caught a pair of bright red eyes in the dark. What they saw next froze them in terror, a towering figure close to 7 feet tall with leathery wings folded behind its back. When the creature suddenly unfurled its wings and began to follow their car, what started as fear escalated into pure panic. The couples claimed that the creature pursued them at high speeds, nearly 100 miles per hour, down Route 62 all the way to the Point Pleasant city limits. It only turned away when they reached a populated area. Frightened and shaken, they reported the incident to local authorities, and soon after the Mothman story caught fire. News outlets picked up the accounts, and more sightings flooded in, not just from Point Pleasant, but from neighboring towns and counties across West Virginia. Eyewitnesses consistently described the same disturbing features: a grayish man-like creature with 10-foot wings, a headless body or sunken face, and glaring hypnotic red eyes. Some claimed it moved silently, while others said its wings produced a soft fluttering sound. It was often seen near bodies of water, abandoned buildings, or areas where disaster would soon strike. The creature seemed less like a predator and more like a harbinger, a supernatural omen with a tragic message. The phenomenon quickly morphed from a local curiosity into a media frenzy. Journalists, cryptozoologists, and curious tourists began flooding into Point Pleasant, hoping to catch a glimpse of the creature. But as sightings increased, so did reports of electrical failures, odd phone calls, men in black suits, and an overall sense of dread. For many in the community, the Mothman wasn't just a myth. It was a living, breathing warning sign. Then, on December 15, 1967, tragedy struck. The Silver Bridge, which connected Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed during rush hour traffic, killing 46 people. In the days leading up to the disaster, several witnesses claimed to have seen the Mothman perched on or flying near the bridge. After the collapse, the sightings abruptly stopped. For believers, the message was clear: the Mothman had come not to harm, but to forewarn. For skeptics, it was all coincidence amplified by collective fear. To this day, the Mothman remains one of America's most compelling modern myths, a story born from a single eerie night strengthened by tragedy, and immortalized in books, documentaries, and even a museum. Whether an omen, an alien, or a misunderstood animal, the Mothman has become a symbol of the strange, the unexplained, and the deeply human need to find meaning in the mysterious. Pursuit in the TNT area and the bridge collapse. The TNT area, a maze of decaying concrete bunkers and overgrown paths on the outskirts of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, served as the epicenter of Mothman sightings during the mid-1960s. Originally a World War II munitions manufacturing and storage site, the location had long been abandoned, giving way to rusted remnants and a strange, uneasy quiet. Locals had long viewed the area as haunted or cursed, but in 1966 and 1967, the TNT area became ground zero for something far stranger, the seeming lair of a winged enigma. What unnerved most witnesses was not simply that they saw something unnatural, it was how the creature acted. Many accounts describe the Mothman as aware, even intelligent, as it stalked the TNT area and the back roads of Point Pleasant. There were chilling stories of it standing atop domes or street signs, staring at passing cars with its blazing red eyes. More than one person reported feeling a sense of dread or becoming physically ill in its presence. Animals would reportedly panic or flee, and electrical equipment near sightings often malfunctioned. The consistency of these elements gave weight to the belief that the Mothman wasn't just a creature. It was something far more powerful, maybe even metaphysical. Among the most terrifying encounters was the high-speed car chase through the TNT area that occurred shortly after the original sighting. Witnesses described the Mothman launching itself into the air and pursuing their vehicle at speeds exceeding 100 mph, keeping pace effortlessly without ever flapping its wings. Its glowing eyes remained fixed on them, seemingly able to peer through metal and glass. The creature was silent, save for the soft rustle of wings against the wind. As the witnesses neared the city limits, the Mothman abruptly vanished as if respecting some invisible boundary. But it wasn't just isolated sightings that unnerved the residents. Over time, other strange phenomena began to occur. People received disturbing phone calls with mechanical or garbled voices. Men in black suits reportedly showed up at the homes of witnesses, warning them to stay silent. There were dreams, vivid apocalyptic dreams of water collapse and cries for help. A sense of impending doom loomed over Point Pleasant like a shadow, darkening the skies even on clear days. That shadow manifested in full on December 15, 1967, when the Silver Bridge, an aging suspension bridge connecting Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed during rush hour traffic. 46 people plunged into the freezing waters of the Ohio River, and many drowned trapped in their vehicles. The nation was stunned. But for those in Point Pleasant, the tragedy felt like a culmination. In the days leading up to the collapse, multiple people claimed to have seen the Mothman perched atop the bridge, silent and watching. Some even said they had recurring nightmares about the bridge crumbling. After the disaster, the sightings came to an abrupt halt. The Mothman seemed to vanish as mysteriously as it had appeared. To this day, some believe it was a harbinger of the tragedy, a spectral sentinel sent to warn. Others think it was a coincidence amplified by fear and superstition. But the convergence of the sightings, the psychic phenomena, and the cataclysmic collapse created a myth that felt too real to dismiss. Whether you view the Mothman as an omen, an entity, or a creation of collective dread, the TNT area and Silver Bridge collapse cemented its legacy. The creature's eerie silence, the fear it inspired, and the real-world death toll that followed forever entwined its story with the darker chapters of human experience, turning legend into living memory, psychological and paranormal interpretations. As the immediate fear surrounding the Mothman began to subside, following the Silver Bridge disaster, researchers, writers, and skeptics began analyzing the phenomenon from a broader lens. What exactly did Point Pleasant experience? Was it a mass delusion, a spiritual visitation, or something entirely different? The Mothman legend, with its eerie symbolism, physical sightings, and tragic aftermath, became fertile ground for psychological and paranormal interpretation, each offering a different kind of explanation for the unexplainable. Psychologically, the Mothman sightings can be seen as a case of mass hysteria or collective trauma. In small, tightly knit communities, anxiety can spread like wildfire, especially when triggered by disturbing events or images. Once the initial sighting was reported by the grave diggers and then amplified by the young couple's terrifying account, the collective imagination of Point Pleasant may have been primed to expect something sinister. The TNT area itself contributed to this effect. Its eerie silence, decrepit bunkers, and wartime history made it a ready-made stage for fear to play out. Once the idea of a winged humanoid creature entered the public psyche, every unexplained sound or shadow could be interpreted through that lens. Cognitive bias plays a role too. The brain is hardwired to recognize patterns, especially faces and figures, even where none exist. Known as pareidolia, this tendency could explain how a bird or distorted shadow might appear humanoid to a frightened witness. Add in the high-stress cold nights and limited visibility, and you have a psychological cocktail ready to produce terrifying visions. The more the media repeated the Mothman story, the more likely people were to interpret ordinary stimuli as extraordinary. However, such explanations fall short for those who experienced the phenomenon firsthand, or those who delve into the paranormal dimensions of the case. For them, the Mothman is not just a creature, but a messenger, perhaps, even a supernatural being with a purpose. Some link it to ancient archetypes of the harbinger, or death omen figures seen throughout global folklore, from the Banshee of Ireland to the Owlman of Cornwall. These beings do not attack but appear before tragedies as if to foreshadow them. The Mothman's eerie silence, glowing red eyes, and sudden disappearance after the Silver Bridge collapse mirror these mythical warning spirits. Another interpretation places the Mothman within the realm of interdimensional entities. This theory supported by paranormal author John Keel in his book The Mothman Prophecies. suggests that what occurred in Point Pleasant was not just cryptozoological, but part of a larger web of phenomena, including UFO sightings, poltergeist activity, and psychic disturbances. Keel proposed that Point Pleasant was a window area, a geographical hotspot where the veil between dimensions thinned, allowing strange beings to slip through. He believed that the Mothman, the Men in Black, and the surge of paranormal events were all interconnected expressions of a greater metaphysical reality that defied conventional logic. Still others suggest a more spiritual lens, the Mothman as an angelic or fallen being, appearing not to harm, but to awaken. Seen this way, the creature's presence forced people to reckon with fear, with mortality, and with the unseen forces that influence our world. Whether psychological projection or metaphysical intervention, the Mothman became a symbol of dread, of mystery, and of the thin line between the known and the unknowable. In the end, perhaps what the Mothman really represents is humanity's deep-rooted need to assign meaning to chaos. Whether viewed through the lens of science, spirituality, or legend, its story endures because it speaks to something universal, the longing to understand our fears and the mysteries that stand just beyond our reach. The legacy theories and ongoing fascination. Long after the Mothman's last reported sighting in Point Pleasant, its legacy has grown far beyond the small West Virginia town. What began as a local terror has become an enduring part of American folklore studied by cryptozoologists, psychologists, paranormal researchers, and cultural theorists alike. Today, the Mothman is no longer just a creature of shadowed roads and abandoned bunkers. It is a cultural symbol, an icon of the unexplained, and a lens through which people continue to explore the mysteries of fear, prophecy, and the supernatural. One of the most tangible signs of its legacy is the annual Mothman Festival held in Point Pleasant since 2002. Thousands of visitors now flock to the town each September to celebrate, investigate, and share stories. The streets are lined with vendors selling Mothman memorabilia, from T-shirts and mugs to books and figurines. Costumed fans pose beside the town's now famous 12-foot-tall stainless steel Mothman statue, which features the creature's dramatic wings and glowing red eyes. What was once a source of dread is now a driver of tourism and local pride, helping to revitalize a town once marked by tragedy. Despite its transformation into pop culture, the Mothman legend continues to inspire serious theorizing. Some researchers believe the creature was a biological anomaly, perhaps a large bird like a sandhill crane or barn owl, whose unusual size or injury caused it to be misidentified. Others suggest military experiments, radiation mutations from the munitions stored in the TNT area, or even genetic anomalies as possible explanations. Yet these natural theories fail to account for the more bizarre aspects of the sightings, the glowing eyes, the telepathic sense of dread, and the sudden disappearance following the bridge collapse. The more metaphysical interpretations endure as well. John Keel's hypothesis of ultra-terrestrials, beings that can manipulate human perception and reality, continues to fascinate paranormal communities. In this view, the Mothman was part of a much larger pattern of phenomena, including the infamous Men in Black UFO sightings and sudden psychic disturbances. These events, which seemed random on the surface, are seen as part of an intentional disruption of human understanding, an existential riddle presented by the unknown. Some go even further, linking the Mothman to global tragedies. Sightings of similar winged creatures have been reported before other disasters, including the Chernobyl meltdown, the 9/11 attacks, and earthquakes. These accounts are often anecdotal and unverifiable, but they reinforce the idea that the Mothman is not bound by time or geography. Instead, it appears where fear is about to manifest into tragedy, like a cosmic alarm bell few can interpret in time. The Mothman's ongoing appeal lies in this ambiguity. It doesn't fit cleanly into any category: cryptid, demon angel, alien, or hallucination. It resists definition, and in doing so, it invites curiosity. Each generation rediscovers it in its own way as a horror icon, a prophetic warning, or a case study in mass psychology. It stands as a reminder that even in our data-driven, skeptical age, the human heart still hungers for mystery and finds meaning in the margins of belief. The Mothman may never be definitively explained, and perhaps that is its true power. It thrives in the gray area between fact and myth, between fear and fascination. In that shadowed space, it continues to fly, not only through the night skies of West Virginia, but through our imagination, our nightmares, and our collective need to ask, what if? Tesla's vision and theories beyond his time. Nikola Tesla, the enigmatic inventor and futurist, remains one of the most fascinating figures in the history of science, not only for his verified technological breakthroughs, but also for the tantalizing theories and claims that remain shrouded in mystery. While he is best known for pioneering alternating current AC electricity, Tesla's ambitions reached far beyond conventional engineering. He dreamed of wireless energy, transmission, weather control, anti-gravity aircraft, and even communication with other planets. These visions, once dismissed as the fantasies of a mad scientist, are now being reconsidered through the lens of modern science and growing public interest in hidden or suppressed technologies. Tesla's belief in free and wireless energy is perhaps his most famous forbidden idea. In 1901, with funding from financier J.P. Morgan, he began constructing the Wardenclyffe Tower, designed to transmit wireless electricity across vast distances using the Earth's natural frequencies. Tesla believed that the Earth itself could be harnessed as a conductor, distributing limitless power to homes, factories, and ships without wires or pollution. But the project was abruptly halted when Morgan reportedly asked, "Where do we put the meter?" Realizing that free energy couldn't be monetized, Morgan withdrew support. The tower was never completed, and Tesla's lab was dismantled. But what if Tesla was onto something more than just an idealistic dream? Some researchers argue that Tesla had uncovered principles that could revolutionize not only energy, but our entire understanding of space-time and matter. He spoke frequently of ether, a hypothetical medium that pervades the universe, through which energy could travel instantaneously. Modern physics abandoned the ether model after Einstein's theory of relativity, but quantum physics, particularly the concepts of the zero-point field and quantum entanglement, has resurrected similar ideas, albeit in new language. Tesla may have intuited truths that science is only now beginning to glimpse. In later life, Tesla made cryptic references to technologies that could alter, whether create earthquakes or disrupt space-time itself. One of his more controversial inventions was the so-called death ray, a directed energy weapon capable of annihilating enemy aircraft from afar. Tesla claimed he never finished the device due to ethical concerns. After his death in 1943, the U.S. government quickly seized his papers and locked them away under the Office of Alien Property. Though some documents were later released, others remain classified or lost, fueling speculation that they contained disruptive technologies. Tesla's obsession with frequency and vibration is also a cornerstone of many fringe theories today. He famously said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy frequency and vibration." This philosophy aligns with esoteric traditions, spiritual systems, and even theories about consciousness and multidimensional existence. In this sense, Tesla wasn't just an inventor, he was a philosopher of energy, tapping into the metaphysical nature of reality. Today, Tesla's name has been commercialized, celebrated, and mythologized. Yet the man himself remains elusive, a figure caught between genius and mystery. Was he a prophet, silenced by powerful interests, a visionary far ahead of his time, or simply a brilliant mind whose ideas were too radical for the world he lived in? Regardless of the answer, Tesla's theories continue to inspire a new generation of thinkers, scientists, and truth-seekers. Those who refuse to believe that the limits we've accepted are the only ones that exist. The Philadelphia experiment and space-time distortion. If Tesla's work hinted at the manipulation of energy and frequency to affect reality, then the infamous Philadelphia experiment takes those ideas to their most extreme and terrifying conclusion. Allegedly conducted in 1943 by the U.S. Navy, this top-secret operation aimed to render the USS Eldridge a naval destroyer to escort invisible to radar. But according to whistleblowers and conspiracy theorists, what actually occurred went far beyond stealth technology. The experiment reportedly caused the ship to dematerialize entirely, briefly teleport to another location, and reappear, leaving behind horrifying physical and psychological consequences for the crew. At the heart of this story lies the claim that Tesla's research into electromagnetism and unified field theory formed the scientific foundation for the experiment. Some accounts suggest that Tesla himself had been involved in early theoretical phases, but withdrew from the project when he foresaw dangerous consequences. The experiment supposedly involved creating a massive electromagnetic field around the ship using generators and Tesla coils. When activated, the ship was said to shimmer, become translucent, and then vanish, teleporting from the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard to Norfolk, Virginia, over 200 miles away, before reappearing minutes later in Philadelphia. What came back, however, was not the same ship or the same crew. Eyewitnesses and later testimonies describe grotesque scenes. Sailors fused into the metal of the ship, some turned inside out, others driven insane or disappearing altogether. These disturbing effects have led some to theorize that the experiment created a temporary rift in space-time, exposing the crew to dimensions the human body was never meant to experience. The story has the feel of science fiction, yet it has persisted for decades with former naval personnel like Carl Allen, also known as Carlos Allende, claiming first-hand knowledge and warning of the consequences of manipulating the fabric of reality. Skeptics argue that the Philadelphia experiment is a hoax fueled by Cold War paranoia and embellished through the years. The U.S. Navy has officially denied that such an experiment ever took place and maintains that the USS Eldridge was never in Philadelphia at the time. However, gaps in military records, conflicting timelines, and the classified nature of related wartime projects have only deepened public suspicion. Some believe that the technology tested was later folded into other secret programs such as Project Montauk, which allegedly explored time travel, mind control, and interdimensional portals. Others suggest that the Philadelphia experiment was never meant to be public knowledge at all, but that its exposure came from a slip in reality itself, a breach in the matrix that revealed what humanity is not yet prepared to understand. In this interpretation, the event was not merely a failed experiment, but a cosmic warning tamper with the deeper layers of space-time, and you risk tearing the veil that protects us from the unknown. Whether a fabrication, a misunderstood test of advanced physics, or a true glimpse into secret technology, the Philadelphia experiment symbolizes the dangerous intersection of science ambition and the unknown. It forces us to ask, what happens when our reach exceeds our grasp, when the quest for power overrides our understanding of what it means to be human? Time travel, government secrecy, and the Montauk Project. Following in the shadow of the Philadelphia experiment is the equally bizarre and chilling tale of the Montauk Project, a rumored series of secret government experiments that took place at Camp Hero, an abandoned military base in Montauk, Long Island, New York. According to whistleblowers and researchers, Montauk was a continuation of the Philadelphia experiment, picking up where it left off in the 1970s and 1980s. This time, however, the goals went far beyond invisibility or teleportation. The project allegedly delved into time travel, psychic warfare, interdimensional portals, and mind control on a scale that challenges the limits of belief. One of the most prominent figures associated with the Montauk narrative is Preston Nichols, a self-proclaimed engineer who claimed to have recovered suppressed memories of working on the project. According to Nichols, Camp Hero was equipped with massive radar dishes and underground labs where researchers conducted unethical experiments on children, many of whom were abducted orphans chosen for their psychic sensitivity. The goal was to amplify and weaponize the human mind using technology derived from Tesla and reverse-engineered alien devices. The most gifted subjects, known as Montauk Boys, were said to have developed remote viewing telekinesis and even time manipulation abilities. At the center of it all was the Montauk Chair, a mysterious device allegedly capable of reading and amplifying psychic thoughts. When connected to a human subject with strong mental focus, the chair could reportedly manifest objects out of thin air, open portals to other dimensions, and even alter the timeline itself. One of the most dramatic claims is that in August 1983, the Montauk team successfully created a time vortex, a swirling rip in reality, through which people and objects could travel across space and time. This date curiously corresponds with the Philadelphia experiment timeline, reinforcing the theory that both projects were part of the same secret continuum. The story grows darker with claims that many of the experiments spiraled out of control. Subjects went mad. Creatures from other dimensions entered our world. And in one terrifying incident, a boy's mental projection, a monster generated by his unconscious fear, materialized and rampaged through the base, forcing officials to shut everything down. Some accounts claim the entire underground facility was buried sealed and erased from official records. Others believe it still operates under deeper levels of secrecy, perhaps not even governed by earthly authorities. As with the Philadelphia experiment, skeptics dismissed the Montauk Project as a conspiracy hoax, pointing out a lack of verifiable evidence and the outlandish nature of the claims. Yet intriguing pieces, remain declassified. MK Ultra documents confirm that the U.S. government did pursue mind control and psychological manipulation, lending some credibility to claims of unethical experimentation. The technology described, especially frequency-based devices and electromagnetic manipulation, also resonates with Tesla's earlier, seemingly fantastical research. More importantly, the Montauk Project has embedded itself into modern consciousness, influencing pop culture through works like Stranger Things, which was originally titled Montauk. This symbolic resonance suggests that even if the details are embellished, the fears they reflect about unchecked government power, abuse of knowledge, and the distortion of time and identity are deeply real. If the Montauk Project is true, it suggests that human consciousness is far more powerful and vulnerable than we know, and that behind the curtain of secrecy, we may be tampering not just with reality, but with the architecture of our souls. Are we experiments a hidden battle for the timeline? If the rumors surrounding the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk Project are more than mere conspiracy, then we must confront a disturbing question. Are we living inside an experiment without knowing it? What if governments or forces beyond them have long been conducting secret operations that alter not only the physical world, but the timeline itself? What if our reality, our memories, our choices, even the flow of history is being manipulated by unseen hands? This is the unsettling theory proposed by those who believe that a hidden war over time is being waged right now. At the heart of this belief is the idea that certain groups, be they governments, rogue agencies, or even non-human intelligences, have developed the ability to manipulate reality at its most fundamental levels. This includes temporal experiments that alter past events, redirect future outcomes, and reset consciousness on a collective scale. In this view, human beings are not merely citizens of nations, they are test subjects in a cosmic experiment, unaware of the true nature of the lab in which they reside. Some proponents of this theory point to the increasing number of timeline anomalies being noticed by people around the world. These include discrepancies in historical facts, famous movie quotes suddenly changing, and shifts in personal memories that don't align with recorded reality, a phenomenon popularly known as the Mandela effect. While mainstream science attributes these to misremembering or confabulation, others argue they are signs of timeline edits, either accidental or deliberate. Could our reality be undergoing periodic recalibrations due to advanced temporal technologies? Supporters of this theory often connect it back to Tesla's lost inventions to scalar energy, quantum consciousness, and even ancient prophecies. They believe humanity is at a crossroads caught between forces seeking to control the human timeline for domination, and those working to awaken humanity to its true potential. In this grand spiritual technical battle, time is the battlefield, and the human soul is the prize. The suggestion is not just that we are watched or studied, but that we are being shaped. Our perceptions of truth, our access to history, even the sequence of events that define our present, may have been curated. This opens the door to profound questions. Have we lived this life before? Has the world ended and restarted? Is déjà vu a glitch or a clue? According to some whistleblowers from Montauk and beyond, there are multiple timelines, and some elites have developed methods to navigate between them. These individuals are sometimes described as timeline engineers, figures who use advanced AI consciousness, mapping, and interdimensional gateways to select or preserve desired futures. but desired for whom. The unsettling implication is that our current world may not be the natural timeline, but the result of many interventions. Wars, pandemics, social upheavals. These may not be random events, but artificially triggered pressure points to redirect human evolution, memory, or behavior. If this is true, then our free will is not just under threat, it may already be an illusion. Yet all is not bleak. Many voices within this community believe that the soul is the true anchor, and no matter how many times the timeline is twisted, the essence of who we are remains. They argue that spiritual awakening, inner stillness, and unconditional truth are the only ways to reclaim sovereignty over our individual and collective destinies. Are we living through a timeline? War? Are we subjects of a higher experiment? Or are we awakening from a long dream, beginning to remember who we really are and how far we've been led astray? Forbidden archaeology and the hidden human history, the cover-up of ancient advanced civilizations. One of the most profound questions humanity has ever asked is this: where do we come from? And while mainstream science gives us a tidy narrative of primitive human evolution culminating in modern civilization, over the last 10,000 years, a growing body of alternative evidence suggests something far more mysterious, that there may have been highly advanced civilizations long before our recorded history began. Known as forbidden archaeology, this controversial field challenges the official historical timeline by presenting archaeological anomalies that don't fit into the standard model. These include megalithic structures, out-of-place artifacts, ooze parts, and suppressed ancient texts that hint at a forgotten epoch of human greatness. The sheer scale, precision, and technological sophistication of these relics defy explanation using primitive tools in tribal societies. In some cases, they appear to predate known civilizations by tens or even hundreds of thousands of years. Take, for instance, the Great Pyramid of Giza. While Orthodox Egyptology claims it was built around 2500 BCE, alternative researchers argue that its alignment with celestial bodies, geometric perfection, and the sheer scale of construction indicate knowledge and techniques far beyond that era. Some geologists even suggest the Sphinx shows water erosion patterns, implying it could be over 10,000 years old, predating all known Egyptian dynasties. Then there are megalithic sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which has been dated to 12,000 years ago, long before agriculture and settled society were thought to exist. The site includes intricate carvings, massive stone pillars, and symbolic architecture that implies cosmological knowledge and social organization well beyond that of a hunter-gatherer society. If such advanced structures existed that far back, what else has been buried physically and metaphorically? Some researchers argue that these anomalies are not isolated. From the mysterious stone spheres in Costa Rica to the Antikythera mechanism, a mechanical computer from ancient Greece, the world is full of relics that suggest lost technologies and forgotten knowledge. The implications are staggering. What if humanity is a species with amnesia? What if a golden age of spiritual and technological advancement once existed, only to be wiped out by cataclysms like global floods, pole shifts, or even nuclear wars of antiquity? Mainstream academia typically dismisses these claims as pseudoscience. But critics argue that powerful institutions have a vested interest in preserving a linear, materialistic timeline, one that supports the narrative of progress under modern science, religion, and political control. Acknowledging a lost civilization would not only rewrite history books, but undermine the credibility of entire fields of study, destabilize religious dogma, and empower spiritual traditions that speak of ancient wisdom. Moreover, many of the suppressed discoveries share common themes: a deep reverence for the cosmos, an emphasis on sound frequency and energy, and a connection to other realms of consciousness. These patterns echo through ancient mythologies from Atlantis to Lemuria, from the Vedic texts of India to the pre-dynastic teachings of Egypt. If these stories and artifacts are indeed remnants of a lost world, then modern humanity may not be the pinnacle of progress, but the recovery phase of a much older, far wiser lineage. The past in this light is not a ladder of evolution. It is a cycle of rise, fall, and rebirth echoing through the sands of time. Evidence of high technology in prehistoric times. If ancient civilizations were more advanced than we've been taught, what evidence supports this? Beyond myths and speculation, there exists a startling array of hard physical clues that point to the presence of high technology in prehistoric times, technologies that appear impossible for supposedly primitive societies to possess. Take, for example, the precision-cut stones at sites such as Sacsayhuaman in Peru and Pumapunku in Bolivia. At these locations, enormous blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, are fitted together with such exactness that not even a razor blade can slip between them. These stones exhibit machine-like finishes, sharp right angles, and bore holes that resemble modern drill work. Yet these sites are officially dated thousands of years before the advent of complex machinery or metal tools in those regions. Equally baffling are artifacts like the Antikythera mechanism discovered off the coast of Greece in a shipwreck dated to around 100 BCE. This object, often dubbed the world's first analog computer, contains gears and dials that track celestial bodies with a level of mechanical sophistication unmatched until the 18th century. How could such knowledge exist in a times when the dominant narrative claims people were still struggling with rudimentary technology? Even more mystifying are the so-called out-of-place artifacts, parts, objects that appear too advanced for their context. These include items like the Baghdad battery, a clay pot from ancient Mesopotamia that some believe functioned as a galvanic cell, or the London hammer, a modern-style hammer found embedded in a 100-million-year-old rock. While skeptics claim contamination or misinterpretation, the sheer volume and consistency of such finds suggest a broader pattern, knowledge lost and then rediscovered. One especially provocative example is the possibility of ancient electrical power systems. In Egypt, the Dendera temple features carvings that resemble giant light bulbs connected to power cords. Could ancient civilizations have discovered a form of wireless electricity? Some theorists believe this is not only possible but likely, and that such energy was drawn from Earth's natural electromagnetic field, possibly enhanced by crystal technology or resonant frequencies. Adding further mystery, ancient texts like the Indian Vedas describe machines known as vimanas, flying chariots powered by mercury engines. These scriptures not only detail aerial battles and anti-gravity flight, but also contain precise engineering instructions. While often dismissed as mythology, many now wonder whether these texts are encoded blueprints, remnants of a technological golden age. Critics often argue that these claims are fueled by wishful thinking or gaps in modern understanding. But those who investigate with open minds insist that the real issue is not the lack of evidence, but the refusal to re-examine what that evidence means. Why do so many ancient cultures describe gods descending from the sky in fiery vehicles? Why do sacred sites align with astronomical constellations with mathematical precision? If these civilizations did indeed possess high technology, whether mechanical, energetic, or even consciousness-based, it would explain not only their awe-inspiring structures but also their sudden disappearances. Natural cataclysms, cosmic events, or internal collapse could have wiped out their knowledge, leaving only tantalizing clues scattered across the globe. The story we've been told about human history may not be a straight line from caves to skyscrapers, but a looping spiral where great civilizations rise, flourish, and fall, leaving behind the scattered fingerprints of their genius. The Great Flood and the Destruction of Knowledge. Across nearly every ancient culture there exists a strikingly consistent myth, a great flood that swept across the earth, wiping out entire civilizations, drowning cities, and erasing humanity's past. From the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia to the biblical account of Noah, to flood stories in Hindu, Native American, African, and Chinese traditions, the narrative echoes with uncanny similarity. Could this shared memory point not to allegory, but to an actual cataclysm that reshaped human history and buried the legacy of a lost civilization? Many independent researchers argue that the Great Flood was not a mere fable, but a global event perhaps triggered by a sudden pole, shift comet impact, or rapid ice melt from the last ice age. Around 12,000 years ago, the end of the Younger Dryas period, there was a dramatic rise in sea levels, a spike in global temperatures, and mass extinctions. Some scientists now acknowledge the plausibility of a massive deluge caused by melting glacial ice and resulting in devastating floods across continents. If a highly advanced civilization existed before this period, as evidence from sites like Göbekli Tepe Sphinx, erosion patterns, and megalithic ruins underwater suggest, then the Great Flood may have been the apocalyptic force that erased their achievements. These structures and artifacts, covered in mud sediment or buried beneath oceans, may be the shattered remnants of a world that once thrived and then was obliterated by nature's fury. But water didn't just destroy buildings. It washed away libraries, scrolls, oral traditions, and entire knowledge systems. One of the most symbolic tragedies in this regard is the burning of the Library of Alexandria. While that event occurred millennia later, it serves as a metaphor for the loss of accumulated human wisdom. Imagine how many other repositories of knowledge, whether carved in stone, encoded in sound, or stored in crystalline structures, might have been lost beneath the waves or in mud-locked tombs of time. The flood myths also contain another layer, divine or extraterrestrial intervention. In the Sumerian account, the gods decide to destroy humanity with a flood due to human disobedience, but one god warns a chosen man to build a vessel. Similarly, in the book of Genesis, God sees wickedness on earth and instructs Noah to construct an ark. These stories may encode not just ethical warnings, but encoded historical truths, perhaps even encoded technological knowledge preserved in sacred architecture or oral lineages. Many theorists suggest that secret societies, mystery schools, or monastic orders may have preserved fragments of this ancient wisdom, passing it down through symbolism, ritual, and encoded myth. The story of Atlantis, told by Plato, describes a utopian civilization with great power and knowledge that fell due to corruption and was swallowed by the sea. Is Atlantis a parable or a memory of what once was? If the Great Flood did indeed mark the end of a global golden age, then we are living not at the peak of progress, but in a long rebuilding phase, slowly reawakening to truths buried by time and tide. To understand who we are and where we are going, we must first be willing to uncover what was lost beneath layers of siltstone and story. The rise of the occult elite. As we peer into the shadowy corridors of power, we begin to recognize a pattern. A hidden hand guiding the course of history, subtly shaping societies and manipulating consciousness on a mass scale. This is not the domain of presidents or kings, but of something older, deeper, and far more elusive, the occult elite. These are not merely powerful individuals, but initiates of a hidden tradition steeped in esoteric knowledge. Ancient rites and psychological control masters of the symbols and frequencies that bind the collective mind. The term occult simply means hidden, yet it has become synonymous with secrecy, mystery, and forbidden knowledge. Throughout history, secret societies from the Freemasons to the Rosicrucians, from the Illuminati to modern intelligence agencies, have operated behind veils of ritual and allegory, guarding the deeper truths of existence. These groups often trace their roots back to ancient Egypt, Babylon, or Sumer civilizations steeped in cosmology, sacred geometry, and initiatory practices designed to unlock hidden potentials within the human psyche. But knowledge, like any force, is a double-edged sword. In the hands of the few, it can be used not to enlighten, but to enslave. According to many researchers, the modern occult elite inherited not only the mystical systems of antiquity, but also the techniques of mass persuasion, behavioral conditioning, and mind control. From the Tavistock Institute to Operation Mockingbird, from MK Ultra to social media algorithms, the art of steering public consciousness has evolved into a science, one wielded by a select priesthood of manipulators behind the scenes. The rise of this elite is often marked by ritualistic displays in plain sight, hidden in popular culture, media, and architecture. We are surrounded by symbols, the all-seeing eye, the obelisk, the checkerboard floor, the phoenix, yet few understand their meaning. These are not mere artistic flourishes, but initiatory emblems that encode power dynamics, spiritual hierarchies, and esoteric truth. The elite speak in a symbolic language that bypasses logic and enters the subconscious, conditioning us without our awareness. Who are they? Not simply politicians or celebrities, but those who engineer the narrative, the owners of the platform, the gatekeepers of knowledge, the architects of perception. They may not all meet in candle-lit chambers wearing robes, but they operate from the same code of hidden dominion, influence from the shadows, never direct rule. In fact, the most effective control is that which is not recognized as control when the prisoner believes he is free and the mind has been quietly conquered without resistance. This occult elite doesn't just hoard material wealth. They seek spiritual authority. Their aim is not only to govern behavior, but to dominate the inner world, shaping belief systems, morals, desires, and dreams. Their power is drawn not only from secrecy, but from our ignorance of the ancient tools they wield, symbols, sounds, archetypes, trauma, and myth. Yet once we see the pattern, it cannot be unseen. The illusion begins to crack, and we are left with a crucial choice: to remain in the spell cast upon us, or to awaken, reclaiming our sovereignty from the veiled sorcerers of the modern world. Rituals in plain sight, entertainment, politics, and mass initiation to the casual observer. Our world may seem chaotic, random, and superficial. But to those with eyes to see a deeper pattern emerges one that reveals a deliberate choreography of symbolism, ritual, and archetypal programming woven throughout modern life. These are not accidental themes in movies, award shows, political events, or music videos. They are rituals in plain sight, functioning as mass initiations designed to mold consciousness, harvest emotion, and subtly reshape our spiritual landscape. Rituals, by their very nature, are transformational tools. In ancient cultures, they served as gateways between worlds, bringing initiates through death and rebirth, awakening dormant parts of the soul, and preparing them for deeper wisdom. But in the hands of the modern occult elite, ritual has been inverted. Rather than elevate, it is used to entrain, to program, to distract and fragment the psyche. Instead of leading us toward our higher self, these rituals tether us to materialism, fear, and manipulation. Nowhere is this more evident than in the world of entertainment. Award shows like the Grammys or Super Bowl halftime performances often display strange theatrical scenes full of occult symbology pyramids, checkerboard floors, phoenixes, black and red color schemes, horned deities, mock sacrifices, and veiled references to esoteric traditions. What the public sees as edgy performance art may in fact be ritual dramatizations intended to echo initiatory rites. These performances often correlate with lunar or solar events, drawing on ancient astrological timing for added energetic effect. But why embed rituals into mass entertainment? Because millions are watching, and through collective attention and emotional engagement, the audience unknowingly participates. The energy generated, be it awe, fear, lust, or confusion, feeds into the ritual's intended effect. The public becomes not just spectators, but unwitting initiates drawn into symbolic ceremonies whose meanings they do not comprehend. Politics, too, is laced with ritual. Presidential inaugurations, royal coronations, and even disaster responses often follow ceremonial structures steeped in occult symbolism. Obelisks, domes, and sacred geometrical alignments are present in capital cities around the world, suggesting that the very design of power centers operates according to ancient mystical principles. These rituals confer a sense of legitimacy, authority, and divine mandate, yet they may also serve to anchor energetic control points in the collective psyche. Even more subtle are the psychological rituals of trauma-based programming repeated through news cycles and staged events. Fear, division, and shock are used to disorient the public, placing them in a liminal state, a space between the known and the unknown, where belief systems can be rewritten. This is classic initiation. Break down the old identity, then implant a new one. The difference here is that it is done without consent on a mass scale and not for spiritual awakening, but for control. Yet once seen, these patterns can no longer hide. Recognizing the ritualistic nature of modern life is the first step in reclaiming personal agency. Awareness dissolves manipulation. When we understand that many cultural spectacles are designed not just to entertain, but to initiate us into false realities, we can begin to choose what energies we allow into our consciousness. The modern world is a stage, and we are its players. The question is, whose script are we following? Symbolic architecture and energy grids of control. Most people walk through cities unaware that the streets beneath their feet and the buildings around them are more than just concrete and steel. They are part of a designed energetic network shaped by symbolism, sacred geometry, and intentional power mapping. From the obelisks in Washington, D.C. to the layout of Vatican City to the Masonic cornerstones in major civic buildings across the Western world. Modern architecture often serves as an occult infrastructure of influence, a physical framework for energetic domination and psychological programming. Ancient civilizations understood that space is not neutral. Temples, pyramids, and megalithic sites were built on ley lines, invisible currents of earth energy designed to amplify consciousness and connect human activity to cosmic rhythms. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, is aligned with incredible astronomical precision and resonates with harmonic frequencies embedded in the Earth's natural field. These sites were not merely places of worship. They were machines for transformation, designed with deep awareness of energetics and intention. This sacred science has not disappeared, it has merely gone underground. In modern times, many capital cities have been designed or retrofitted to channel energy, not toward enlightenment, but toward control. Consider the prominent use of phallic obelisks, such as the Washington Monument or the Vatican's Central Tower, echoing the Egyptian Ben stone, a symbol of creative and divine power. Placed at key energetic intersections, these monoliths do not merely decorate. They act as anchors of occult energy. Governments, intelligence agencies, and corporate headquarters are often housed in buildings whose forms reflect ancient symbols, pyramids, hexagrams, pentagrams, or circles within squares. These shapes are not random. In esoteric traditions, geometry is consciousness. A building shaped like a cube or hexagon carries a different energetic signature than one designed with curves or golden ratio spirals. When used with intent, architectural geometry can direct energy, influence mood, and subtly program behavior. Moreover, urban design itself often follows ritualistic layouts. Washington, D.C. famously integrates Masonic patterns into its city grid. Paris and London, too, align their monuments and boulevards with celestial markers and occult references. Some theorists argue that these cities function as modern ritual centers, conducting planetary-scale ceremonies through collective participation, whether through war memorials, royal processions, or public holidays. This grid extends beyond buildings. Cell towers, highways, power lines, and media signals create a modern energetic matrix, a web that not only carries data and electricity, but also influences the electromagnetic environment in which human minds operate. While this may sound like science fiction, many studies suggest that EMF fields affect mood, sleep, and even thought patterns. When paired with symbolic structures and mass media, this grid becomes a tool of subtle spiritual entrainment. But this system only holds power when its purpose remains hidden. The moment we become aware of how architecture affects consciousness, we can begin to disengage from its manipulations. We can seek spaces that nourish the soul, natural landscapes, sacred geometry, and homes filled with intention and balance. In doing so, we realign with an older, truer architecture, the geometry of the heart, spirit, and cosmos. In the end, we are not just inhabitants of buildings, we are builders of inner temples. And when we reclaim that role, the external grids of control begin to lose their grip, reclaiming the hidden knowledge, awakening the lost powers within. For centuries, the wisdom of our ancestors, spiritual, alchemical, energetic, has been suppressed, distorted, or buried under layers of dogma and distraction. Yet this hidden knowledge has never truly disappeared. It remains encoded in ancient texts, sacred geometry, mythological archetypes, and the forgotten capabilities of the human soul. The time has come to reclaim it, not for power over others, but for the liberation of our own consciousness. Every human being carries within them a latent spark of divine intelligence, a deep inner compass that once guided sages, mystics, and healers across civilizations. This inner faculty was not mystical. In a vague sense, it was highly practical, allowing ancient people to intuit energetic fields align with cosmic rhythms, heal the body through intention, and tap into non-local awareness. These were not supernatural powers, they were natural abilities dulled by centuries of spiritual amnesia. The suppression of this knowledge was no accident. In order to maintain centralized systems of control, political, religious, economic, those in power had to convince humanity that its true power lay outside itself in kings, in priests, in technologies, or saviors. The great inversion of truth told us we were broken, sinful, separate from the divine. And yet ancient wisdom across cultures, whether in the Hermetic teachings of Egypt, the Upanishads of India, the Taoist texts of China, or the esoteric traditions of early Christianity, echoed one clear message: the divine dwells within. To reclaim this knowledge, we must begin where it was buried within our own bodies and minds. Practices such as breathwork, meditation, visualization, sound frequency fasting, sacred movement, and symbolic contemplation are not just spiritual hobbies. They are tools for repatterning the nervous system and awakening dormant capacities. They activate the pineal gland, balance the hemispheres of the brain, and open the heart center, unlocking states of coherence where the veil between the seen and unseen thins. We must also challenge the belief systems that have kept us bound. When we examine the cultural narratives we've inherited about success, fear, identity, sin, and even death, we find many of them are designed to disempower. By replacing these outdated scripts with truths grounded in direct experience, we restore sovereignty over our internal world. This is not a rejection of science or tradition, it is a transcendence of limitation, integrating ancient insight with modern understanding. And finally, we must remember that awakening is not a solo journey. All spiritual initiations were once held in community, supported by elders, symbol ceremony, and shared purpose. Today, the new initiates are scattered across the globe. But through the threads of intention resonance and technology, we are beginning to find each other again. As we share knowledge, stories, and presence, we reconstruct the invisible temple of truth, not in stone, but in consciousness. Reclaiming the hidden knowledge is not about escaping the world, it's about transforming our relationship to it. It's about seeing with awakened eyes, acting with clarity, and embodying the very truth we seek. When enough of us do this, we shift the collective field not through revolution, but through resonance. Because in the end, the lost powers were never truly lost. They were waiting for you. Practices to awaken consciousness and break the spell. Awakening is not an accident. While moments of spontaneous insight may strike like lightning, sustaining elevated awareness requires deliberate practice, a conscious reorientation of life away from the numbing routines of modern society toward inner clarity, presence, and self-mastery. If we are to break the spell cast by mass programming and subtle control, we must return to disciplines that cleanse the mind, sharpen intuition, and reignite spiritual memory. The first and most accessible doorway is breath. It's the bridge between body and spirit.
Most people breathe shallowly and unconsciously, mirroring the stress and fragmentation of their inner world.
But conscious breathwork, such as coherent breathing, alternate nostril techniques, or deep diaphragmatic respiration, can stabilize the nervous system, quiet the monkey mind, and open subtle, energetic channels. Ancient yogis, Sufis, and Taoists all used breath as a sacred key to altered states and inner revelation. Second is stillness, the practice of meditation, not as escape, but as a return to center. In silence, the noise of external programming dissolves and the deeper voice of the soul can emerge. Even a few minutes each day spent in observational awareness, watching thoughts without attachment, emotions without judgment, can untangle years of unconscious conditioning. Over time, stillness becomes not just a practice, but a way of being grounded, present, and responsive rather than reactive. Another potent tool is conscious fasting, not only from food, but also from media noise, gossip, digital distractions. Periods of intentional abstinence restore sensitivity. What once felt normal, the news feed, the algorithmic echo chamber, suddenly feels hollow and invasive. In this space of absence, the soul speaks louder. Many initiates of ancient traditions underwent fasting before receiving visions or insight. It is a clearing of the vessel. Equally transformative is sound. Chanting sacred syllables, listening to harmonic frequencies like 432 Hz or 528 Hz, or engaging in toning practices can reorganize the energetic body. Sound bypasses the rational mind and penetrates the subconscious, helping dissolve trauma and stagnant emotional patterns. Indigenous tribes, temples, and mystery schools alike have used sound for healing and initiation since time immemorial. Beyond individual practices, we must also examine our environment. What symbols surround us? What architecture shapes our daily experience? What language do we internalize? Changing the outer world to reflect the inner truth is not about aesthetics, it is about resonance. Replace toxic influences with nature, art, sacred geometry, and nourishing relationships. Choose clothing, colors, and rituals that remind you of who you truly are. Lastly, perhaps the most important practice is remembrance. Each day recall that you are a soul, temporarily inhabiting a body, not the other way around. Remember your dreams. Remember your intuition. Remember that your emotions are signals, not commands. This act of remembrance builds a bridge between the temporal and the eternal. Together, these practices do more than just disrupt the trance of modern life, they create a field of clarity. And when practiced in community, they become exponential. The more we live from awakened consciousness, the less susceptible we are to manipulation, fear, and illusion. We become sovereign beings immune to the spells of the world, not because we've escaped it, but because we've reclaimed our light within it, rebuilding the world from within. The transformation we seek in the world will not come from revolutions, politicians, or grand external systems. It will emerge from a much deeper place, the transformation of the individual soul. To rebuild the world, we must first rebuild ourselves from within, aligning with truth, healing our wounds, and reclaiming our inner authority. Only then can we create a world that reflects divine intelligence rather than systemic control. This rebuilding begins with inner sovereignty. In a world that constantly pulls our attention outward toward screens, institutions, validation, and fear, we must reclaim our ability to anchor within. Sovereignty is not about isolation or defiance. It is the quiet power of self-possession, of living from an authentic internal compass rather than reacting to external pressure. When enough people begin to live this way, culture shifts not through protest, but through presence. We are taught to believe that real change happens at the top in governments, corporations, or technological breakthroughs. But history shows otherwise. Great spiritual awakenings and social transformations have always begun with individuals, mystics, philosophers, teachers, artists who turned inward, touched truth, and then embodied it outwardly. They became living transmissions of a higher order, planting seeds of consciousness that outlasted empires. Rebuilding from within also means healing our trauma. So much of society's dysfunction stems from unacknowledged pain, abandonment, shame, powerlessness, projected onto the world through control, addiction, aggression, or apathy. Inner work is not self-indulgent. It is revolutionary. Every trauma healed every wound, transformed every act of forgiveness, breaks a generational chain. It frees future realities from the repetition of unconscious suffering. From this foundation, we begin to re-enchant the world, not in a naive or escapist way, but by consciously choosing to infuse life with meaning, ritual beauty, and love. We make our homes sacred. We speak truth even when it's inconvenient. We support others in awakening. We align our work with our soul's calling, not just the market's demand. These small actions ripple outward in powerful ways. Community is essential in this rebuilding. Isolation has been one of the most effective tools of disempowerment. True spiritual growth accelerates when shared in presence, when we gather with others who are on the path not to follow a guru, but to mirror each other's light. Together, we form a new spiritual architecture, not of institutions, but of interwoven souls holding a new frequency on earth. This is not about perfection. It is about sincerity. The new world will not be built by flawless beings, but by those who are willing to face their shadows, stay humble, and walk forward anyway. Each act of courage, each spark of awakening adds to the invisible scaffolding of a future that is already forming not from top-down control, but from the bottom-up awakening of hearts. In the end, to rebuild the world from within is to become the living answer to your deepest questions. It is to remember that you were never powerless, that the world you see is a reflection of the consciousness you hold, and that by returning to your true self, you become a beacon for others to do the same. This is how we rebuild the world, one awakened soul at a time.